Hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again, and I've just watched my 20th movie in 20 days for my Marvel Cinematic Universe watch through. I've just watched Ant-Man and the Wasp. This was a good movie. I'll jump right into it. The opening scene is Ant-Man, Scott Lang, playing with his daughter in their house, and they're doing hide and seek, and they've got some kind of like crazy contrived like fort he's built out of cardboard and stuff, and they're messing around and so on. And it's a fun, cute scene. But watching it now during the 2020 coronavirus lockdown and global pandemic, I'm just like, this guy's been locked in his house for 2 years. I can empathise with this now to a degree that I never had before. This is someone who is desperately trying to entertain themselves, and I can deeply, deeply sympathise. But yeah, other than that, sorry, the movie is good. It's solid. It's got good casting. Um, the actress that plays Ava, in other words, Ghost, is really well cast. Obviously, you've got all the main characters as well. Evangeline Lilly smashes it as the Wasp, and Michael Pena again, hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So, well cast movie, well paced. It was fun. At one point, it leaned too much into the funny, and that was that weirdly slapstick scene at Scott's daughter's school when they go to retrieve one of the Ant-Man suits, and that whole thing where he becomes child-sized, and they're running around. I mean, thankfully they didn't lean into that for more than a couple of minutes, but even that couple of minutes was a bit like, there's no real need for this. And also, it's not a necessary plot device at any stage later on in the movie. Whilst his regulator does malfunction several times during the finale, he doesn't turn into a half-size human. I don't know, it just felt a little bit too slapsticky. They'd gone a little bit too far with that. Um, in terms of that, the other thing that I found a little bit odd, and to be honest, I can't put my finger on why I didn't like this, was especially towards the end, it just felt a little bit too contrived. I don't know if they felt that there were too many plot threads, or there was just a bit too much going away in this kind of strange game of keep away they had with the miniaturized office block and miniaturized lab. But it just felt like there was the FBI, there was Birch and his people, there was Ghost, and it's like everyone seemed to be just chasing everyone everywhere else, and it just felt a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what about it this time round, the second time round, made me just feel like, oh, this is just getting a little bit too busy for the sake of it. And people are just behaving in a slightly frustrating way. I remember first time round absolutely loving it. Second time round, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've had more time to sort of ponder the characterization of some of the characters, and especially Birch, who, by the way, is played and cast brilliantly. Birch just felt a little bit like a mustache twirling, ha 80s sort of villain, rather than a villain with the same depth of characterization we've seen elsewhere. Ava was very well characterized and very well written, but maybe Birch kind of stood out to me a little bit in that sense. Having said that, it's a comedy movie and it's based on a heist template, and these sorts of things are exactly in keeping with that sort of genre. So maybe it's not a criticism of the movie, maybe it's more just not even a criticism of the genre. Maybe it's just I'm not compatible with heist movies and heist genres. And I think that's actually possibly quite true. I don't really like heist movies generally, other than the Mission Impossible. So maybe that's just a me thing. Um, One thing I do want to point out, and again, I don't want to pull threads unnecessarily, but like this shrinking technology is not being used anywhere near as effectively as it should be being used. So, for example, they're running around holding this lab. It's like, well, surely you can shrink the shrunken lab even further. And the reason I say that is that there's that point, that slapstick scene in the school where um, Wasp gets hold of the Ant-Man suit, which is shrunken down, and then she shrinks down to carry it back to the van. It's like, well, surely when she's shrinking down to carry it back to the van, she's shrinking down a shrunken suit because she's put it in her pocket. So you can double shrink things. Well, in that case, you can double enlarge things. Um, right, obviously. And also, shrinking only seems to be used understandably against inanimate objects, because we know that unless you're wearing the appropriate helmet, it'll do some damage to your brain. It won't kill you, it'll just mess up your head a little bit. And they established that in the first movie. Well, in that case, when they're having that showdown on the streets in the car chase, why don't they just shoot the bad guys' cars with a shrinking thing? Like, why don't they just shrink them down? I mean, there's just things like this, and this question like this has just got me thinking. I don't know. It just wasn't quite executed the way that perhaps I would have executed it. But then, having said that, maybe I'm too relentlessly rooted in reality. Overall, I just want to say this movie was great. It was fun. It was exactly the right sort of palate cleanser that we needed in terms of a movie set after Infinity War, and I think they made the exact right choice. Going for a comedy type movie, even if it was a heist movie that I personally don't necessarily love, the point is going for a comedy movie in a lighter tone is exactly what you needed after Infinity War, because Infinity War really ends on such an emotional downbeat that you couldn't maintain that for a couple of films before you die back into Endgame. So I think they did the exact right thing with picking Ant-Man here. Final thoughts. So one quick thing about the theme and the thematic idea behind Ant-Man. It's pretty similar to Aquaman, actually. Okay, did no one else notice this? Like, it's about a hero who goes to some realm no one's been before, or everyone dies when they go to reclaim their mother who's actually been living there for like 20 or 30 years. It's like, yeah, it's pretty similar to Aquaman, which isn't a bad thing. Aquaman's a good movie. And final thought regarding the X-Men and Phase 4 and Phase 5 of the MCU. They mention here that Ghost is out of phase in the sense that she's out of phase in moving between parallel universes. And we know at the end of the movie that she's not cured because Scott has to go back into the quantum realm to get more healing particles to try and continue her being stable. So we know she's not cured. We know she can phase between parallel universes. And is this how they bring the X-Men, the mutants, into the MCU? I'd be interested to see that happen. In a way, I'd quite like to see that happen because, frankly, other than the post-credit scene, which is the one where everyone disappears because of the Snapchat, other than that, this movie actually has no net effect on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's no sort of point to this movie. And I guess I'll talk about this later when I do my summing up thoughts of the whole cinematic franchise. There's a couple of movies where it's like, if those movies hadn't happened, nothing would be any different. And Ant-Man, other than the post-credit scene, or Ant-Man the Wasp rather, feels like it's one of those movies. So it would be nice for me personally to see that a Ghost actually has a much more important stake in what happens in the MCU in Phase 4 and Phase 5. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Good movie, really enjoying it. And tomorrow I'll be watching Captain Marvel, which I have a lot of thoughts about and a lot of questions about. So, as always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon and picking up my pro superhero novel, No Gods or Kings. And as always, until tomorrow when I'm watching Captain Marvel, stay classy.